Hello, and thank you for joining tonight's telephone town hall hosted by Senators Chris Van Hollen and Angela Alsobrooks with special guest Rob Shriver of Democracy Forward. I'll be your moderator for tonight's call. Shortly, we will be joined by Senator Van Hollen, Senator Alsobrooks, and Rob. On tonight's call, the senators and Rob will provide a quick update on efforts in Congress and the courts to fight back against Trump's illegal actions and to protect our federal workers. Following this, they'll answer your questions. To ask a question, please press *3. If you have a question, you can press *3 at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our team. They will take down your name and a question. The next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call, and you'll be able to ask your question directly. If you are streaming the event on our website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player, and we will take questions from the stream as well. Again, to ask a question on the call, please press *3. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. For our federal employees on tonight's call, a friendly reminder that this is a public forum. If you have concerns that you'd like to share in a confidential way, please feel free to visit Senator Van Hollen's website at vanhollen.senate.gov or Senator Alsobrooks' website at alsobrooks.senate.gov. You can also call our offices at 202-224-4654 or 202-224-4524. Don't forget, to ask a question, you can press *3 at any time, and to sign up for the Senator's newsletters, you can press *6 at any time. With that, I'll turn it over to Senator Van Hollen to get tonight's town hall started.
Hi, this is Chris Van Hollen, and thank all of you for joining us for this special telephone town hall. And I'm thrilled to be joined by my new partner in the United States Senate, Senator Angela Alsobrooks. I want to thank everybody tuning in at a period of time that I think we're experiencing a constitutional crisis with the illegal issuance of multiple executive orders that are beyond President Trump's authority. I also want to thank all the federal employees on this call. Thank you for your patriotic service to the American people, for the services that you provide every day, whether you're serving our veterans at hospitals, whether you're working on food safety inspections, whether you're providing Social Security benefits at the Social Security Administration, and hundreds of other important services that you provide to the American people. Thank you. We're going to get to your questions shortly, but please remember that if you do want to ask a question, please press *3. But first, Senator Alsobrooks and I are going to make some brief opening remarks. And I believe that we're witnessing the most corrupt bargain in American history. Elon Musk contributed $280 million to help get President Trump elected, and President Trump has now turned the keys of federal agencies over to Elon Musk. And we're seeing ongoing illegal raids on these federal agencies. And make no mistake, this has nothing to do with government efficiency. Senator Alsobrooks and I stand ready to reform government wherever necessary and to make it more efficient. But if you want to make the federal government more efficient, you don't begin by firing en masse all the inspector generals, as President Trump did. Inspector generals, of course, are the independent watchdogs. Their job is to look out for waste or fraud and abuse in federal agencies. So firing them, far from making the government more efficient, opens the door to more corruption. If you want to make the federal government more efficient, Elon Musk doesn't have to gain access to the personal, private information of Americans through the Treasury Department raid, Social Security numbers, bank account numbers, other very sensitive information. And fortunately, a federal judge has curtailed that effort. If you want to make the federal government more efficient, you don't send a stop work order to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That bureau, of course, are the cops on the beat for consumers, right? They look out for scammers and cheaters who are ripping the American people off out of their hard-earned money. They've returned billions of dollars to the American taxpayers, including over $100 million to Marylanders who were cheated out of their money. So they're telling them not to work and at the same time letting off all those who were scamming the American public. Those are just some examples. The real purpose of Elon Musk's raid on the federal government is to implement Project 2025. You may recall that that was the project, the blueprint that when candidate Donald Trump was asked about, he said, I don't know anything about that. And then he went about installing one of the chief architects of Project 2025 as the head of the Office of Management and Budget at the White House, which is the command and control center for the rest of the federal government. And Russ Vought, who's in that position, said, and you can hear this on tape, that he wanted to, quote, traumatize federal employees. So that's what's happening. They want to clear the way to allow the most powerful to have their way, whether it's big oil or whether it's clearing the way for tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans at the expense of everybody else. So this is a crisis, I believe, and we need to fight it on every front. We need to fight it in the courts. We need to fight it in Congress. We need to fight it in the court of public opinion. And we are doing all three of those things. You're shortly going to hear, after Senator Alsobrooks, Rob Shriver, who's with Democracy Forward. He's going to talk about some of the court cases. He's also, very importantly, the immediate past director of the Office of Personnel Management. So he understands federal employee rights very well, and I'm glad that he's joining us. But we are fighting this on multiple fronts. I've been providing information to Rob Shriver and the lawyers so that we can get standing for many of the groups that are bringing these lawsuits. Senator Alsobrooks has been doing the same thing, and we've been working very hard to block these nominees for the cabinet because they are clearly unqualified. Earlier today, Senator Alsobrooks was on the floor of the Senate arguing against RFK Jr.'s nomination. After this call, around 10:30, I'll be going to do the same so we can have no more business as usual in the United States Senate. So thank you for being on this call. We're looking for your questions, your information, because your stories are an essential part of defending our democracy. So with that, let me turn it over to my Senate partner, Angela Alsobrooks, who has hit the ground running. Senator Alsobrooks.
Thank you so much to our senior Senator, Chris Van Hollen. I want to thank you so much, first of all, for your leadership, and then also just thank you for being such a wonderful partner. It's been a real honor to have joined you here in the Senate. I want to thank you so much for really helping to host this tonight. I also want to say thank you so much to all who have joined us tonight, who have signed into this call at a time like this, a very, very important time. And I know that many of you, and I'm sure that Senator Van Hollen will agree with me, that we're hearing so much from all of you, from the aisles here of Wegmans, where I shop each week, to my front office. I have really seen so many Marylanders who've actually taken time literally to come meet me in the front office here in the basement of the Senate, to my phone lines and our social media. We have heard countless stories from Marylanders over the last month. And many of them are feeling anxious, they are confused and fearful, and I think, unfortunately, that really is the point of this administration, is to really spread chaos and confusion, to demoralize and denigrate our really amazing civil servants who serve this government. And what we know is, from chaos to crisis, this president has made it clear that governing effectively, even efficiently, is not a priority of his. And instead, what is the priority been? It's been targeting over 150,000 workers here in Maryland. And I've spoken with so many, including a woman who has worked 35 years at the Department of Agriculture, who, believe it or not, said that she was placed in her current position under this president's first administration, and now she's been let go. Another federal worker who has worked in an agency for over 17 years is now furloughed. And on the verge of tears, she explained how she was afraid not just for her own livelihood, but for the fate of those losing their Title II food aid. And she was thinking of malnourished children who will stop receiving food because of this administration's actions. And we've heard also hundreds who have expressed grave concerns with Elon Musk, who is unelected. He's the co-president of Donald Trump, and he's demanding access to our confidential personal data. And one particular gentleman said that he feels absolutely helpless and said that to him it felt much like a really bad movie. And so I was struck also by one Marylander in particular who was in her 60s, and she was faced with the decision of whether or not to take this so-called buyout. And she said it weighed very, very heavily on her, and she's close to retirement. But in the end, she told us that she really loves what she does and wanted to continue her work. And even in these chaotic and difficult times, she said that she wanted to continue the important work because she enjoys serving the American people. And so I don't think that any of us on this call are surprised by her, because this is who we are as Marylanders. So many of us have answered the call to serve, be it in the federal government or locally in our communities. We take great pride in the work that we do, and we believe in the power of government to actually do good for the American people. And because ultimately that is what we are all about. We are all here to serve because of the American people. I think it's so important to remember that the civil servants who are being attacked, we're not just attacking the 150,000 hardworking Marylanders. We are attacking the millions of Americans that their work serves. That is what is so sinister about this, is that we are not just attacking those civil servants, but there are so many who are relying on their services to process Social Security checks, to make sure that veterans get their hard-earned benefits, keeping our food and water, drinking water safe, researching cures for cancer at the NIH. And in his witch hunt for federal workers, this president has decided apparently that no target is too small, no family is too vulnerable, and no American is out of bounds. And so let us not forget that this is the same president who said that he would lower costs on day one. But I want someone to tell me, how does cutting Medicare lower the cost of eggs, or how does slashing funding at the Social Security Administration lower the cost of gas, and how does firing a bunch of civil servants lower the cost of housing, and how does Elon Musk even have access to our Social Security numbers, and how does that lower the cost of prescription drugs? And we know that the fact of the matter is that it doesn't. Full stop. Today we learned, in fact, that prices are actually going up. Inflation compared to this point last year is up. And so what is obviously clear is that this is about retribution. It's about vengeance, about lining the pockets of this administration's billionaire friends. And none of this, all of us know this, will bring down costs for hardworking Maryland families, which brings us to our call tonight. So I am so grateful to be here with all of you, with Senator Van Hollen and our guest, Rob Shriver. And it is so critical that we hear directly from you, the people of our great state in these times. And I'd like to say that when members of this administration see me in the halls, I want you to know that we are not taking this laying down, that when they see me, they have to also see you, the people of Maryland. I represent your values, your needs, your belief in our state and in our country, and I know that I speak for both myself and Senator Van Hollen when I say that we will not be intimidated, and we're using every tool we can in the Senate to resist this administration's attack on our federal workforce. So I'd like to end my opening remarks with this by telling you that it is, whether you voted for me or not, it is such an honor, and I am so very proud to be your senator, and I am fighting every single day for every one of our families here in Maryland, and I know that that we're going to be able to get great things done. So I'm going to hand it over now, I believe, to Rob Shriver, who is going to be addressing us tonight. I certainly want to thank him for being present on the call tonight, who will be representing us from Democracy Forward. Rob, I'm going to be handing it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Senator Alsobrooks, for those inspiring remarks. Thank you, Senator Van Hollen, for your years of championing federal workers. It's really my honor to be here. I have spent almost all of my 30-year career fighting for federal workers, including, as the senator mentioned, most recently the director of the Office of Personnel Management. Throughout those 3 decades, I've gotten to know many of you feds out there, and I think there's a few things that you all share. One is that you leave your politics at home and you don't bring it into the workplace. 2 is you all care deeply about the mission of your agencies, and that's because you know how important that work is for the American people. And so 3 is that you work really, really hard every day against tough circumstances to deliver for the American people. And you do that no matter who the president is or what party is in charge. You understand what your role is. You bring your expertise and your skills to the workplace every day, and you offer your opinions in a way that you think will help the political leaders in your agencies make important decisions. And so that's why I am just appalled at what I have seen come from this administration, which is a very clear strategy of attempting to drive career civil servants out of their jobs, either to downsize the government or to replace them with people who are loyal to the current administration. And it makes me sad because the country's been down that road before. We tried a spoil system, and it was a complete disaster filled with corruption and inefficiency. I am really proud to be a part of Democracy Forward, which is an organization that goes to court to protect people and protect democracy. And I wanted to mention just a few of the lawsuits that we have brought so far just in this first 3.5 weeks of the administration. We've brought lawsuits to stop DOJ from gaining access to America's health and financial data at the Departments of Labor, Health and Human Services, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We filed a suit to stop Russ Vought from unilaterally defunding and shutting down the CFPB. We've also filed suit to stop the administration from shutting down unilaterally USAID. We have filed suit against DOJ under transparency rules that apply to any organization that operates with the government. We have filed suit over the new Schedule F rules that would expand essentially a class of people who would be treated like political appointees, expand that to tens of thousands, if not more, of career civil servants. And we filed suit over the Fork in the Road deferred resignation program, getting that deadline delayed so that feds can have more time to evaluate their options. Those are just some examples of the many cases that we have been bringing against the administration to hold them accountable. And I want you all to know that we and others out there, including the senators, are fighting for you every day. We have a website called civilservicestrong.org. You can get resources there about what's happening in the administration, about what your rights are, about ways to pursue action if you need to do that. We're there to help, and we have resources there to help on civilservicestrong.org. Thank you once again, Senator Van Hollen and Senator Alsobrooks, for including me, and I'm happy to help answer any questions along the way.
Well, Rob, thank you very much for joining us, and really thank you and Democracy Forward for all the work that you are doing. Senator Alsobrooks and I are grateful for your efforts, and I know that our constituents are too. So we're now going to open up for questions. Just a reminder, if you have a question, please press *3. And Senator Alsobrooks and I are going to alternate in taking the first crack at your questions. And Rob Shriver is here to jump in on any questions that specifically relate to the areas that he is working on. So let's open it up for questions.
All right, we'll take our first question from Erica from Chevy Chase. Erica, go ahead.
Good evening, Senators. Thank you both for joining forces tonight. My name is Erica, and I live in Montgomery County. I am a mom to 2 teenage boys, a wife, and a public health advocate and healthcare advocate. I am deeply troubled about the imminent effort to slash the number of people who work to protect our nation's public health, implement our biomedical research agenda, and protect kids from tobacco products. As Congresswoman DeLauro pointed out in the New York Times today, this is not the administration's decision, it is Congress's. How will you and the other senators use the upcoming CR deadline or other opportunities to ensure that, once again, this is Congress's decision and not President Trump's? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Erica, and I'll take the first crack at that. And let me just start by saying that we already saw this illegal effort to unilaterally slash funding from NIH to various important research institutions around the country, including, I should say, many in the state of Maryland. And those cuts would have harmed our ongoing research efforts to find treatments and cures to cancer, to Alzheimer's, to other diseases. And I was very pleased to see a court again jump in and enjoin that action to issue a temporary restraining order. I will also say we are continuing to fight the nomination of RFK Jr., who said that he would, if he gets into the secretary's position, he plans to replace 600 people at NIH. In other words, replace hardworking scientists with political cronies. So we are fighting that on the Senate floor this evening. With respect to the continuing resolution, Senator Alsobrooks and I will do everything in our power to make sure that we prevent deep cuts in these critical public health areas that you're talking about, biomedical research, but also cuts that some have proposed to children's health insurance programs, to community health centers, to Medicaid. And not only as part of the continuing resolution or part of the upcoming budget, but I just had a meeting of the Senate Budget Committee today, and I offered an amendment to prohibit cuts as part of the reconciliation process to Medicare and Medicaid. Unfortunately, my amendment failed on a party line vote. So we have our fight cut out for us, but Senator Alsobrooks and I will use all of our powers in the Senate to stop these attacks on public health. And Senator Alsobrooks, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. So, Erica, first of all, thank you so much for calling. And I agree with Senator Van Hollen. These cuts are devastating, and they will quite literally cost lives. The cuts that we have seen to NIH, to researchers and scientists who have been working on cures to important, to devastating diseases, it will literally cost lives. And so, like Senator Van Hollen, many of you probably saw that I'm on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, so I had the opportunity to actually ask questions of the nominee, RFK Jr. I was disappointed in his responses. I think he proved himself to be a person who is wholly unqualified to be our Secretary of Health and Human Services. But there are various actions. Senator Van Hollen talked about the aggressive stance we will take during the CR that is coming up. But you should also know that Johns Hopkins has recently filed a lawsuit as late this past Monday, along with 12 other higher education institutions. And so they have filed a lawsuit. So we will be working, again, there will be multiple layers to it, what we can do legislatively. We will also do what we can to support the lawsuits that have been filed. So this is going to be an all-out, the process is going to be one that is really an all-out kind of defensive posture that we'll be in, because this is just, it's horrendous. So again, thank you so much for your call, and we're going to do everything we can to fight for NIH and for our entire medical community.
All right. Next, we will take our question from Donna from Frederick. Donna, go ahead.
Hello, Senators. Thank you for taking my question. My question has to do with services that my adult with developmental and intellectual disabilities receives through Medicaid. Deep cuts, this is probably a follow-up question on the previous question, but the proposed deep cuts to Medicaid my son needs his services in order to live. And I just need to know what you're going to do to protect the developmental intellectual disability community.
Well, thank you so much. It's Senator Alsobrooks. We are absolutely pushing back against the effort to cut Medicaid and to adversely affect people like your son who rely on those benefits. And so we are really pushing back. Part of what we've done, both myself and Senator Van Hollen have actually recently signed a letter, and we sent that letter directly to Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune, indicating our displeasure with the efforts to cut Medicaid, and we're going to continue to do that, to demand answers, to speak up, and to make sure that we're also using whatever legislative levers we can to make sure that we're preventing those cuts from happening. But just speaking up makes a big difference. Hearing from families like yours helps us to give substance to the pushback that we're putting forward, and we think it will also help us as some of the lawsuits go forward.
So, Donna, this is Chris, and I second everything that Senator Alsobrooks just said. One of our top priorities will be to protect Medicaid. It helps tens of millions of Americans like your son, and if you see cuts to Medicaid benefits, it will harm, seniors in nursing homes, individuals on disabilities, and tens of millions of other Americans who rely on Medicaid for their health care. So this is one of the areas we are worried about. I'm glad you asked about it. We are fighting it at every turn, as I mentioned, including today at the Budget Committee. The fight's not over because I do worry Republicans are going to continue to push for cuts to Medicaid. And I will say that RFK, during his hearing, seemed not to really understand Medicaid, just one of many reasons why he's not qualified. But Senator Alsobrooks and I are going to fight very hard to protect Medicaid. We stopped the effort to undo the Affordable Care Act a number of years ago. It was by one vote in the United States Senate, which is why, as Senator Alsobrooks has said, your voices and voices of the American people throughout the country are so important at this moment.
Okay, next we'll go to a question from Jay from Westminster. Jay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. And Senator Alsobrooks, we did vote for you. My question is, do any of your Republican colleagues understand the magnitude of this constitutional crisis that Donald Trump is provoking, and are they willing to defend the Constitution and their constitutional responsibilities?
Well, this is Chris. Unfortunately, the short answer is, at this moment, no. They seem to be cowering, worried about the next tweet from Elon Musk or Donald Trump. It's extremely disappointing, but it's also dangerous because our constitutional framework and checks and balances, requires that senators and House members uphold their constitutional responsibilities. When Russ Vought, who was the nominee to head OMB, was in front of the Senate Budget Committee, I asked him directly if he would commit to complying with the law, including the Impoundment Control Act. That's the law that prohibits, presidents from cherry picking the laws, right? Saying yes to the ones they like and rejecting those that they don't. When Congress passes an appropriations bill, it comes all together. It's not a la carte. And so Republicans, sadly, right now are not upholding their constitutional responsibilities. Every one of them voted for Russ Vought, despite his refusal to say he would stand up for the law. So this is part of the problem. It's another reason, though, why it's so important that Americans speak out, because as Senator Alsobrooks pointed out, what's happening, the damage being caused, is being caused really to all Americans, regardless of party or people who don't have any party. And, when Donald Trump said he was going to be there for the forgotten Americans, Clearly, that's not who's front of mind right now. It's more the folks who were behind him on Inauguration Day, people like Elon Musk and the tech titans. So we are in a fight. I wish I could say our Republicans would join us. Quietly, many of them do agree with us. They expressed their misgivings privately, but they've not had the courage to stand out publicly, and we need that to change, and they need to hear from people across the country and their constituents. Senator Alsobrooks?
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, Jay, thank you for calling in, and I certainly want to thank you for your support. And what I can tell you, your question is very well founded about our Republican colleagues and whether they understand. I think many of them understand, but I think it would also be great for you and others on this call to make sure that you are calling them. You know, I get to hear from my constituents. I've been really pleased to see constituents, as I've mentioned, who take the time to even come down to our office. But I think in order for them to really understand the magnitude and the breadth of people who are impacted by these decisions, they have to hear also from all of us. The Republicans have to hear from all of you, and including Republicans not just here, but if you have family members or friends who are in other states, they need to also call these Republican lawmakers and make them understand the vast impact that these executive orders and such are having. And, you know, I think that's just the point. You know, I've said it before, I'm going to say it one more time, is that these actions are not just affecting, for example, the civil servants who are being attacked, but the American people are suffering. This administration and the inaction by these Republicans, it hurts their constituents too. All of us, those who voted for this president, those who didn't, and those who did not vote at all. It is the impact is really growing. And I can tell you that recently I heard, for example, when we think about NIH and think about the cuts that are happening, some of these cuts to medical research, it's happening in Republican states, very red states also. So the research universities there are also now speaking out, and they are deeply concerned as well about what the cuts will mean for them, for their research, for the people that they care for. And so it's only a matter of time because, you know, the consequences sometimes can be inadvertent. And I think the consequences of these actions are far-reaching, and they are going to impact Republicans, Democrats, and those who didn't vote either way. So, but speaking out is important. I unfortunately don't think my colleagues all take it seriously, the responsibility they have to advise and get consent. But we can help them to understand that.
All right. Next, we'll go to a question from Tamika from Bowie.
Yes. Hi. Good evening. So my question is about the recent ruling that the judge allowed the Fork in the Road program to go forward. He said the plaintiffs didn't have standing and the court didn't have jurisdiction. So I'm concerned about my coworkers who have taken this deal, which has not been funded by Congress. Are there any additional legal steps we can take to address those issues of standing and jurisdiction?
So, Tamika, this is Chris, and I'm going to turn this over in just a second to Rob Shriver, since he's been working on this issue directly. But Senator Alsobrooks and I have cautioned federal employees not to jump at the fork in the road, memo option, the buyout option, because we've been very concerned that the Trump administration may not have the authority to offer this and to follow through on it. And as you indicated, the judge has now essentially set the case aside on the grounds of standing, not on the fundamental merits. And so let me turn it over to Rob Shriver to elaborate on that and any next steps.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, so the court had twice entered what's called a temporary restraining order so that the deadline wouldn't take effect while it was considering the case. So that started last week, and then today it essentially denied the preliminary injunction that we had been working on with federal unions representing like some 800,000 workers, I think. And so now our clients are considering what their options are. You asked whether there's any more legal steps. We're certainly considering with our clients what those options are. And remain committed to supporting the civil service. I would also just add that I share the reservations that Senator Van Hollen and you expressed about this so-called fork in the road deal. I have continued questions about funding, especially given that we're under a continuing resolution, about the underlying legal authority, and also about the very broad waiver that it appears that federal employees who accept this deal will be asked to sign, which seems to indicate that you would waive any and all claims you might have arising out of your employment, including a claim to enforce the very agreement that they're asking you to sign. So I continue to have those concerns, and we'll be considering what our next steps are legally.
Thank you, Rob. And I should note, too, that that is a question we received a lot on the live stream. So thank you, folks, for including your questions on the live stream, and we'll continue to go through those as well. Next, we'll go to Kathy from Baltimore. Kathy, you're live.
Great. Thank you so much. And I just want to say I feel really proud to have both you, Senator Van Hollen and Senator Alsobrooks, as my two senators. I see how you're fighting, and I really thank you for your work. And Mr. Shriver, thank you so much for your critical lawsuits. My question is, I'm a social justice advocate and really care deeply about what's happening. I've been calling into your offices. I've also called into Senator Collins's office because we have a house in Maine. I also have been sharing the stories of all the work that my dad did as a director at the NIH and sort of making that a very personal story and sending that out to my social networks. What concerns me is where Democrats who live in a Democratic-led state can make a real difference. I loved Senator Alsobrooks' idea of reaching out to Republicans in other states. But I just wanted to get your take on what average citizens can do. And also, if you can give us an idea of what the strategy of the whole Democratic Party is as the opposition party, because it's a really hard fight that we have right now. Thank you.
Well, Tafara, it's Angela Alsobrooks. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly, but thank you so much for calling in. And you know what? The answer to that is stay in the fight. I think that largely the actions on behalf of this administration, if you look at how they have started, is to demoralize the public. I think that their aim is to make people feel helpless, hoping you give up, quit your job, and just throw your hands in the air. And we're going to do anything but that. We are, I would encourage everyone on the line today to continue to do the things you're doing. We will stay in touch with you, making sure that you are making those phone calls, that you're talking to each other, sharing information, sharing with us also stories and information that you have, and to take care of each other. You know, this is a time that reminds us how important it is to stay close to our neighbors, to make sure that we're checking in on one another. As we see the times are getting tougher, we saw that the prices are going up. People are concerned about their employment. So this is a time really to make sure you are checking in on your neighbors. That's something that we can all do. Ask, how are you doing? And then, you know, we're going to work as a team in Maryland. Myself, Senator Van Hollen, will be working with our governor, working with our locally elected officials, working with different organizations to make sure that we're doing everything we can to care for people as we make it through this. And the point of the matter is this: we absolutely will make it through this. I'm convinced it's only a matter of time before some of these efforts collapse on themselves. There is so much lawlessness that is happening right now. The chaos, the lawlessness, it just cannot, it's not sustainable. So I am looking forward to having some of these lawsuits succeed. The efforts we will be taking in the Senate to make sure that we are slowing down and stopping some of what is happening. But in the meanwhile, you all hang on. Please do not give up. We're going to make it through this, and we're going to do it together. So I'm going to hand it over to Senator Van Hollen.
Well, I say amen to everything Senator Alsobrooks said. I just want to underscore a couple things that all of you can do. One is to continue to call your friends that in other states, because we do need Republican members of the House and Senate to be feeling the pressure from these very dangerous decisions they're making and from their abdication of upholding their own constitutional responsibilities. They really need to be hearing from people across the board. Second, continue to provide us information for those of you who have been sort of directly injured by the actions taken by Trump and Musk, because Rob Shriver and his team are working to put together these lawsuits. One of the things you need to have a lawsuit is a standing, and you need to show injury. And so contact Democracy Forward and others directly, but you can also provide us information and we can forward that to lawyers at Democracy Forward and others that are bringing the case. And finally, as Senator Alsobrooks said, we just need to be using our voices and actions. I said at the outset that we were able ultimately to stop the effort to undo the Affordable Care Act by one vote in the United States Senate, right? The effort to undo it passed the House of Representatives back then, and it only failed by one vote in the United States Senate. So it's a reminder how every vote counts and every phone call that people get counts. So thank you all for being together in this fight at this moment.
All right, next we'll go to a question from Fran from Silver Spring. Fran, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate your taking time this evening. I'm curious as to whether or not the party is considering that the Democratic members in Congress will directly sue the president under the failure for him to abide by the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. You have standing as members of Congress who vote for the appropriations, and that is clearly your constitutional authority and not his. The Impoundment Act of 1974 has already been tested clear up to the Supreme Court and found valid. So why are members of Congress not directly suing over the withholding of funds from all of these agencies?
So, Fran, this is Chris. I'll take the first crack at that. And I can assure you one of the first phone calls I made after we saw the early violations by President Trump of the Impoundment Control Act was to determine whether or not members of Congress had standing. And the answer actually is that the person who has standing is not Congress. We do not have the ability to go into court on this. That standing in this Impoundment Control Act was delegated to the head of GAO, the General Accountability Office. And interestingly, many years ago during the first Trump administration, when President Trump then was withholding funds for Ukraine, I actually sent the GAO a letter to investigate the situation, and the response I got back from GAO was, in fact, the Trump administration was violating the Impoundment Control Act then, and interestingly, Russell Vought was also the head of the Office of Management and Budget at that time. That said, the basis of many of these lawsuits has been the violation of the Impoundment Control Act, because as you just said, the Supreme Court has previously found that presidents don't get to sort of cherry pick the law. President Nixon tried this back in the 1970s when he executed or tried to these line item vetoes, right? He would get an appropriations bill from Congress and he'd scratch out the parts that he didn't like. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. And that's why Congress passed the Impoundment Control Act. So this is clearly a big issue. This is why the lawsuit was filed very quickly when President Trump withheld the monies that had been appropriated by Congress for all sorts of important community priorities across the country. I mean, Senator Alsobrooks and I heard from firefighters who depend on federal grants to buy equipment to keep them safe when they run into a burning house. We heard from Head Start programs. We heard from folks working in law enforcement, including efforts in Maryland to stop human trafficking. We heard from a whole range of people whose funds had been illegally cut off, which is why the courts, one in Rhode Island and one here in Washington, D.C., both put temporary restraining orders on that. But we are very focused on the Impoundment Control Act. It's very possible that the Trump folks will take this question all the way to the Supreme Court, and we'll have to make a very important argument in favor of protecting the Constitution in Article 1. But thank you for that question. It does go to the heart of many of these illegal actions. And let me turn it over to Senator Alsobrooks.
Okay, thank you so much, Fran, for calling in. Senator Van Hollen, I think, gave a very comprehensive answer. So I'll just add one thing to it, and it is that we are working very much as a team in Maryland. We're doing what we can here in Congress, but we also, you should know that our Attorney General, Anthony Brown, has joined a lawsuit along with 22 other states, and that lawsuit is regarding the funding freezes in the Impoundment Act. So we believe it's the Impoundment Act. So we know that lawsuit is going forward. So we're just kind of working on multiple levels, but we're definitely all working in tandem, but did want you to know that our Attorney General is joining a number of lawsuits suing the administration.
Okay, next we'll go to a question from Rosemary in Baltimore City.
Hi. Good evening, Senators. I am 74 years old. My sister will be 69 this month. We live just on Social Security. Our main concern right now is Elon Musk having access to the Treasury. He, not only Elon, but the people who work with him, our bank information, our Social Security numbers. Our fear is that what happens if Elon Musk or one of his people manages to stop our payments? This is all we live off of. This is our lifeline. What happens, if they would manage to do that? What recourse would seniors have? Right now, I understand fighting for the middle class, and all that, but we need somebody to champion for the seniors right now, too. And we are living in fear every day now with Trump and Elon Musk. I know they always threaten that they're going to do something with Social Security, but this is more realistic right now. This is something that not only could happen, it may well happen. And, we shouldn't have to be at this age and live in fear like this. Everything is going up. We got a very small cost of living increase. And it doesn't cover the increase in our utilities right now, real estate taxes. We have a mortgage. What do? We wouldn't be able to survive if they stop the payments or do something to the Social Security. So, is there anything that can be done about that?
Thank you, Rosemary. I couldn't agree more. What is happening around Social Security and around giving Elon Musk, who is unelected, access to the Treasury is really unconscionable. And it's not just him; it's these other people who are with him. I've heard that one of the people involved is like 19 years old. I mean, it's just ridiculous what is happening. And there are some actions that have been taken. There are a number of, for example, unions who have currently filed an action suing regarding the handing over of Social Security numbers, tax information, and other IDs. So it's on behalf of about 7.2 million individuals that this lawsuit has been filed. So that is yet another action that has been taken to stop the handing over of that information. And, we share your concerns, and it is unconscionable that people who have worked hard for those benefits, these are benefits that they work for, and that those benefits are, really at risk right now. So, and I've Democrats on the banking committee, and I'm on the banking committee, are also holding hearings to really challenge the administration regarding this access that's been given to Elon Musk. And so I'll hand it over to Senator Van Hollen.
Well, thank you, Senator Alsobrooks, and just to say yes to everything Senator Alsobrooks said, but she and I and some of our House colleagues, Congressman Fume, Congressman Olszewski, Congresswoman Elfreth, were out at the Social Security Administration building just on Monday because we'd gotten word that the Social Security Administration might be the next target for Elon Musk and his Doge cronies. And we're monitoring that situation very closely because they should not get their hands on that very important personal information, Rosemary, that you talked about. Now, there was this effort, as we discussed earlier, to get the personal information of Americans at the Department of Treasury, because the Department of Treasury makes all the payments on behalf of the U.S. government, including payments on behalf of the Social Security Administration. So it was very important that we intervene in that sort of raid on people's personal information. Fortunately, a judge very narrowly circumscribed the access, some of the access Elon Musk and his team have, and on top of that, they've essentially tried to prohibit them from interfering in that payment system with respect to Social Security benefits, for example. Meanwhile, Senator Alsobrooks and I will fight every effort here on the Hill to try to reduce Social Security benefits. But Rob, I think Democracy Forward was part of that case to protect people's personal data. Am I right about that?
Yes, Senator, that's right. We have been, ever since they first went into Treasury, we've been trying to kind of stay ahead of them and find out where they're headed next. And we've got a complaint against multiple agencies now and have been able to keep Doge away from that data. So we'll keep pursuing that sort of agency by agency as those things come up, because it seems like they're intent on making the rounds.
All right. And next we'll go to a question from Erica from Oxon Hill. Erica, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Van Hollen and Senator Alsobrooks, for having this town hall and for taking my call. I'm one of these people that work on environmental justice, so I was put on administrative leave, and it's heartbreaking because of the work I do. I feel like my legs were just cut off, and because they don't understand what environmental justice is, it's just because it says justice, I guess they have this perceived notion, but the work that I do is engaging communities with resources to help them with environmental issues. And I was like, if you look at the Environmental Protection Agency as a whole, it is environmental justice. But this administration doesn't seem to understand that. And so we've been put on administrative leave, and I'm reading about him getting rid of the Merit Protection Board, which would hear our cases if we feel like we were wrongly terminated. It's like, what remedies do we have if he's dismantling everything that was sort of the protections that you had as a government worker? And what can be done? Is Congress able to do anything to stop this, or does this have to go all the way to the Supreme Court? And then that's not looking favorable either, looking at the majority that's on the bench right now.
Well, Erica, this is Chris, and first of all, thank you for the very important work that you were doing on environmental justice issues, and I am so sorry about what the Trump administration is doing to you and others who are doing such important work on behalf of the American people. We are going to do everything we can to reverse these really, really egregious actions that they are taking. You mentioned the Merit System Protection Board. That is the sort of due process place that federal employees are supposed to be able to go when they're wrongfully either terminated or other wrongful actions taken against them. As you said, Trump has just fired one of the members of that Merit System Protection Board. She has filed a lawsuit because of the wrongful termination. So what we're experiencing here, and I'm sorry that you are facing the brunt of this personally, are these sweeping illegal actions, which is why the courts have been so busy. So Senator Alsobrooks and I have established sort of resource pages here in our offices. You can find our resource page at my website at vanhollen.senate.gov. Senator Alsobrooks and her team have also been trying to guide federal employees who are in tough positions. So I want to hand it over to her, but after Senator Alsobrooks speaks, I do want Rob Shriver to speak to this because, as you heard, he's the former head of OPM, the Office of Personal Management, and has deep experience on federal employees' rights.
Thank you so much. I'm going to hand this over to Rob in just a moment, but Erica, I did also want to also thank you for the tremendous service that you provided. I want you to know that we still value that service, and to let you know that we're gonna be here. And there's a website. I think Senator Van Hollen just referenced it. We would love for you to go there, democrats.senate.gov /whistleblowers, because we're collecting all of this information. It's going to help us going forward with lawsuits and other things that we are filing. So Rob, if you're there, can you jump in and also provide some information?
I sure can, Senator. And I agree that these folks don't know what federal employees do. I question whether they've even ever talked to a federal employee. The nature of the work, for example, at OPM that we did on DEI was getting people paid for their internship programs and, opening up pathways to federal service for people that go to community college or trade schools. I don't really know who has a problem with that. And I don't know who would have a problem with the work that you described. I'm glad that you focused on the Merit System Protection Board, a very little-known cog in the process here. I think the firing of the member of the MSPB without cause is a major problem, and the only reason to do that would be to try to deprive federal employees of the remedies that you can get through the Merit System Protection Board. I would note that right now there still is a quorum. There still are 2 members of the MSPB. We'll have to see how long that remains. There also are administrative judges that hear cases for the MSPB. So even if it were to go down to only 1 member and they wouldn't have a quorum, there still is an ability to get relief through the administrative judges. And then there's also, for those of you who are members of the bargaining units, you can go through the grievance arbitration process and get remedies that way. But let me also just say that the best lawyers in the country are working on figuring out ways to get federal employees into court on their cases. Sometimes we lose on standing grounds, like the senator mentioned earlier, but we're doing everything we can to get into federal court to protect your rights. And if they shut down the administrative remedies by depriving the MSPB of a quorum, by firing the head of the Office of Special Counsel, that may just add credence to the arguments about getting into court in the first place.
All right, now we'll take a question from Judy from Cockeysville. Judy, go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for having this forum. I'm very happy to be listening to all you have to say. I am a retiring pediatric intensive care nurse, and I am almost 84 years old, and I've been very happy with my Medicare, Medicaid, and I paid $8,000 out of pocket last year for medications. I was so elated to learn that it was going to be capped at $2,000. And is this going to stay in place? I know that the president has tried to put the kibosh to that. Do you think that will continue? I mean, it's very important for people my age, you know?
Prescription drugs.
I can jump in. I don't know if Senator Van Hollen is there, but thank you. I absolutely agree with you on the prescription drug medications. That cap that came into place under the Inflation Reduction Act is so very important. Covered a range of medications, about 10 of them. It's being expanded now to include, I believe, another 15 medications that will be covered. And you're right, it's life changing. I think about my own father whose medications, Eliquis is one of the medications that was finally included on that list. And before that was the case, he was told the medication would cost about $800. So it is a really important cap. As of now, we don't have any information. It's not true that the cap will be lifted, but we know that any and everything, I think is kind of on the table. Is what we'll be fighting against is any effort to remove the caps that have been placed on medications like insulin. I mentioned, of course, again that Eliquis and others. But it's going to be important for everyone on this line, again, to talk to me, to talk to Senator Van Hollen, and for those who are able to make those calls also to the Republican lawmakers and let them know how important that particular cap is for all of us.
Now, let me jump in just to add a little bit to that. So Senator Alsobrooks and I will work very hard. We will fight to the end to protect the gains that we made for seniors who are part of the Medicare program. So as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which we passed during the Biden administration, we included a number of important provisions with respect to prescription drugs and Medicare. One was the $2,000 a year out-of-pocket cap. That is in place right now. I will say that Republicans have been talking about rolling back the Inflation Reduction Act. We will fight that effort. They also, as I said today in the Senate Budget Committee, refused to adopt my amendment that would prohibit any cuts to Medicare. That would include these benefits with respect to prescription drugs. I also offered an amendment in the Budget Committee today to prohibit them from rolling back the provision in the Inflation Reduction Act that finally gave the Medicare program the authority to negotiate lower prices on behalf of the Medicare program and Medicare recipients. I mean, that has saved the Medicare program funds because pharmaceutical companies and others were charging way too much for certain prescription drugs. So by including that negotiation provision, finally, that brought down the overall cost for the Medicare program. And, of course, it also brought down the prices and costs for seniors on Medicare with respect to those drugs. So the pharmaceutical industry sued. They've got lawsuits that they sued pending to try and undo that. And I will say Republicans in the House and Senate, some of them are targeting that provision. So we're going to have to fight very hard simply to allow Medicare to continue to negotiate lower prices for Medicare recipients. We'd like to extend those lower costs to everybody, and that is our next fight when we're able to get the votes.
All right, next we'll go to a question from Alan from Baltimore. Alan, go ahead.
Yes, I am 74 years old, and I retired from 34 years of government service. The first 8 years was in the military. It included flying over Vietnam and the Gulf of Tonkin. And then I worked for 26 years for U.S. Customs. I am terrified they're going to take away not only Social Security, but my government pension. And should I be concerned, and what can you do about it?
So this is Chris, and first of all, thank you. Thank you for your long-time service in various capacities for our country. So I can assure you that we, Senator Alsobrooks and I, will do everything we can to protect a federal employee retirement benefits. This has been a target in the past by Republicans, and I do fear that it could be a target again during this upcoming so-called reconciliation process. This is the process that they're trying to use to try to pass major tax cuts for very wealthy people and pay for them in part by cutting very important benefits for American people, including Medicare, Medicaid, but also federal employee benefits. So this process starts at the Senate Budget Committee, and that's where we started it today. And I did offer an amendment to say that they could not, as one of their proposed reductions, cut either the retirement benefits for current federal employees and retired federal employees. And unfortunately, Republicans voted against it. It was about a vote of 12 to 11 Democrats in favor of protecting those retirement benefits, 12 Republicans at least keeping the door open to cutting them. So I thank you for raising this very important question. I really encourage, all federal employees and all fair-minded Americans to oppose efforts to sort of cut earned benefits for our federal employees and people who have served our country like you.
And Alan, I too want to thank you for your 34 years of service, and just want to emphasize, in addition to everything that Senator Van Hollen said, just want to emphasize that it is very unlikely, I believe, that they can change benefits that you've already earned. Now, I think the effort, as Senator Van Hollen has said, is to really cut the benefits, or to try to cut future benefits for current government employees. But for those that you have already earned, I think it would be unlikely that they can change benefits that you've already earned. So, Rob, if you want to add anything to that, please do.
I think that's right, Senator. I think that would be a major problem to try to take back benefits that have already been earned. I guess I would also suggest that, make sure you're checking in with your union. I don't know if you, Alan, were an NTU member at CBP there, but the unions will be very active on working on the Hill and make sure they're doing everything they can to prevent the take back on federal benefits.
All right, next we're going to take a question from our live stream. This question is from Jim. Jim asked, I work for Montgomery County Schools in special education. What kind of impact will this attempt to rid the Department of Education have on my students and their families? I believe Senator Alsobrooks.
So, this is a timely question because you're right. This change to the Department of Education could have very, very real consequences and impacts on families, and most especially on our children with disabilities. Tomorrow is actually the hearing of the nominee for Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. I met with her last week, and I'm prepared to ask her questions tomorrow. And I will be asking her very directly about whether or not she intends to cut those benefits for our students with disabilities, and we'll be challenging her. And I can tell you, based on the meeting that I already had with her, I feel pretty certain that she will be following what we've seen already of this administration in terms of deep cuts. And so I am unlikely to support, it's not even unlikely, I'm absolutely voting against her nomination, but I will be asking her those questions tomorrow.
I want to thank Senator Alsobrooks for all the work she's been doing on that committee, the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, and including with respect to the nomination to be the next Secretary of Education. I'm not sure why. First of all, the candidate is totally unqualified, but it's questionable why anybody would want to be the Secretary of Education in an administration that is seeking to dismantle the Department of Education, which was part of Project 2025. Now, the administration, I think, recognizes that they can't issue an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education all at once, and they're working on a plan that would unfortunately take it apart in pieces, which I think will still be illegal, because I think that's something that Congress has to grapple with. But to your question on special education, clearly dismantling the Department of Education and eliminating the offices at the Department of Education who look out for the civil rights of Americans, including Americans with disabilities, would be very potentially damaging to the IDEA program and other programs. So it would be unfortunately in line with many of the other actions that they're taking that would harm individuals with disabilities. And I do know that a number of the Republican proposals would block grant the IDEA funding, the special education funding, when in fact we should be increasing IDEA funding. We should follow through on the commitments the federal government has made to cover 40% of the costs. And I've introduced a bill, and Senator Alsobrooks is a co-sponsor of that bill, to finally make good on the federal government's promise to cover that full 40% cost of funding IDEA. But certainly we should not be going backwards, and we should not be dismantling offices of the Department of Education whose job it is to make sure that every American gets a good quality education.
Next, we'll go to a question from Alla from Germantown. Alla, go ahead.
Good evening. My question is going to focus on federal unions who fight for the federal employees. And unfortunately, there were a couple of executive orders that are targeting the bargaining units in general. And also the agencies and agency heads, the new administrations, are not abiding by the collective bargaining agreements that were signed earlier. So the federal unions here would need the support of the Senate in this case. And if I'm asking if we could further support them, and that these agreements cannot be ignored and they are binding, these agreements. Thank you.
Thank you. And so this is Chris. We've been working very closely, Senator Alsobrooks and I, with the federal employee unions, unions like AFG, unions like NTU, other really important federal employee unions on all of these issues, including the litigation. As you said, collective bargaining agreements are very important for protecting federal employee rights. They are negotiated between the employees and their union on the one hand, and the executives at various federal agencies on the other. I was just talking to Martin O'Malley the other day, who was the immediate past head of the Social Security Administration, and they worked to make sure that they had agreements with employees and unions that both served the American taxpayer and people, but also protected employee rights. And you're right, the new administration is going to try to undo some of those commitments, contractual commitments that were made. Those will be challenged in court by the unions. And after Senator Alsobrooks speaks to this question, I do want Rob to also take a crack at it.
So, Senator Van Hollen and I have been meeting with AFGE, the Federal Government Employees Union. In fact, I was yesterday, there was a rally here, and then met again today with some of the members of AFGE. And so we're working hard with them. But unfortunately, as you've mentioned, these unlawful actions are happening. And we were expecting to have actually the hearing today for the Secretary of Labor and it was postponed because of the weather. I was very much looking forward to questioning her. So I am going to be asking her these questions during her confirmation hearing, but I can tell you already that I am disappointed because in my one-on-one meeting with her, I did press her directly about whether or not she would be upholding the law against an administration that has shown that it is intent on breaking the law, and whether she intended to uphold these collective bargaining agreements and whether she intended to enforce the law. And she made it pretty clear that she was going to follow what the administration wanted, that she would be working at the pleasure of the president. And so I'm going to be asking her these questions again during her hearing, but I do share your concern about her willingness to stand up against Donald Trump if she's confirmed. So I'll hand it over to Rob.
Thank you, Senators. Yeah, I agree that those collective bargainings are sacrosanct. That's what the law provides. And it doesn't matter if there were terms that were agreed to under the prior administration that this administration doesn't like. It's a contract. It's a binding CBA under the law, and agencies got to adhere to them until it's time to renegotiate, and then they can negotiate a different deal. And so I know the unions will be ready to protect their contracts by pursuing unfair labor practice charges. Those ultimately get reviewed in the courts of appeals, so there is an avenue to court there for the unions. And I guess the thing that I would suggest as far as what all of you can do is, look, those unions are only as strong as the members that they have. And there are a lot of people that are in bargaining units represented by these unions that aren't paying union dues. And the unions have an obligation to represent you under the law, and they do that. But I would encourage you to take a look at that and see if you're in a bargaining unit, if you're a dues-paying member, and if you're not, I'd ask you to consider becoming a dues-paying member to help the unions in the fights that they have ahead of them, because they are many and they are going to be long.
Thank you, Rob. So I want to thank all of you for joining us at this critical moment in our country's history. We had almost 17,000 people on this call, which I think shows the deep concern around the state of Maryland for what's happening under the Trump administration, the illegal actions being taken. We did not talk that much tonight about Schedule F, but I do want to say a word about it, because this is this other illegal action that the Trump administration and Elon Musk and Russ Boyd are trying to implement through executive order and other actions that would convert about 50 to 60,000 merit-based civil servants, people picked on qualifications, and change those positions to political positions that could be filled by political cronies. And Rob Shriver's organization and Senator Alsobrooks and I will fight that effort. And we're grateful to have all of you weighing in at this moment in time. And I just want to say that if you have, further comments or questions or need help, you can reach my office at 202-224-4654. I also encourage you to go to our website for any information you may need. It's vanhollen.senate.gov. Please sign up for our e-newsletter. We're using that as a vehicle to try to keep constituents informed because of this emergency situation. We're sending those out more frequently and trying to provide all of you and people throughout the state with important information. But let me just close by thanking all of you for being patriots who care about the future of our country. And we will fight these illegal efforts in the courts with organizations like Democracy Forward. We will fight it in Congress with respect to these nominees and through the CR process. And as I said earlier, Senator Alsobrooks was already on the floor today opposing the RFK Jr. nomination. I'll be going in about an hour and a half. and we will have to fight it in the court of public opinion, and all of you have an important role to play in that. So thank you, and now let me turn it over to close to my really terrific Senate partner who, as I said, has really gotten to work quickly at an extraordinary difficult time, Senator Angela Alsobrooks.
All right. Thank you so much to our senior Senator, Chris Van Hollen, who is doing a really, really amazing job. And thank you so much, Senator Van Hollen, for co-hosting this tonight. And thank you, everyone, for signing on. Rob, thank you so much for lending us your expertise as well. And I want to just say thank you to all of you for your service to our country. And as I've said at the beginning of the call, please know that my door is always open. And I want you to know that I will continue, along with Senator Van Hollen and the rest of our delegation, to continue to work on behalf of Marylanders every single day to really fight back against all of these illegal actions, making sure that we are also working in tandem with the rest of our team. The Attorney General of our state, we're going to be working with the governor and others to make sure we're doing everything we can to protect Maryland's interests. And I want you to know also, should you want to reach out to us further, my number is 202-224-4524. That's 202-224-4524. You can also follow me on social media at Sen_Alsobrooks on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And we also have a newsletter that I encourage you to sign up for. It's alsobrooks.senate.gov. And so we will continue to update everyone as we go along. So again, thank you so much for tuning in tonight and being with us, and we'll look forward to serving you.
Thank you, Senator Alsobrooks. Thank you all very much for joining us, and let's all keep in touch. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.